Hi, welcome back, or welcome if you're new here. I'm Marissa, and I share stories about stuff that I'm going through. Sometimes it's mental health related, and other times it's not. And in this video, I wanted to talk about why I left my corporate job last year and never looked back. That was a really hard choice to make for me, and I finally feel like I'm in a good place about it, and I have a solid foundation to fall back on. I wanted to share my experience over the last year and talk about what it's been like leaving a career that I spent a long time building. So in my last video, I briefly mentioned how when I first had my first kid, that I would go to work when he was a baby and I would feel this giant lump in my throat and I would release all the waterfalls at the end of the workday. It was a really rough time. I felt like I was called to be a mother, as cheesy as that sounds, but once I had him, I felt like I had to nurture him and be there with him, and leaving him at home was such a hard thing for me to do as a mom. Even though he was home with my husband, he was home with his dad, like he was totally safe. It's just that in my heart, I knew that I was supposed to be there, as weird as that sounds. And then when we started in-home daycare with him, which was really close to my work, I felt even worse. He would cry at every drop off, like not just like little cries, like sobbing, like really sad. He did not want me to leave cries. And believe me, I didn't want to leave him either. That was the hardest thing I did was listening to him cry and then having to leave him there. But nonetheless, I did that for 9 years. For 9 years, I struggled with that. And every day that I would be in the office, I would present as if I was so happy to be there. And I did feel happy to be there, honestly. Like, I was happy to be around adults. I was happy to be doing something productive, I guess. But at the end of the day, I knew deep down that that productivity was not really serving me. It was serving someone who already had it all. It was serving someone up top, you know? Like, I was not really providing for where I felt like I needed to be providing, because that nurturing piece of me was still really seeking that time at home. And yet here I was being pulled into this life that I did create on my own, essentially, because I took those steps in my life to get there. But it just didn't feel aligned for a long time. Basically, since I gave birth, like, to my kids, I just didn't feel aligned. But it just took a really long time for me to come to terms with that, I guess. And for me, it wasn't like any one specific event or thing that happened that made me, well, I guess there was something that happened. So over the course of time that I worked at the corporate office specifically, when I worked in stores, I felt like it was a different environment and I was in a different part of my life where I was just completely masking, but I was also sort of happy because I did find a group of people that I felt supported by. I was with friends that were really kind and supportive and encouraging. I just felt like I had it all figured out. And then when I came to the office, I realized that life wasn't so rosy. People weren't really smiling all the time. I think that was just what we did at stores to entice people to be there. And we also were genuinely in a good mood, mostly because we liked being around each other. But in the office, it was just different. You didn't get to like build your team with your friends like we did in stores, kind of. We were they put in place there by people who like picked us. And so I would walk by people really happy to be there, and I would not get that in return. And that was fine. Eventually, I learned to just kind of be there and be part of that. And I kind of lost myself within all of that. I started having health problems. The things I was doing, because they were not aligning to like my true core values within me and within my being and my gut, I feel like my body knew and it was like rejecting what I was giving it. I don't know another way to put it, but there would be certain things that happen at work, and I remember having like health issues come up out of nowhere. I wouldn't be able to get out of bed literally for like a day or two. I'm not even exaggerating. It would be like just a constant waterfall. Ew. Yeah, it was pretty bad, and that would happen pretty frequently throughout my career. Mostly in like the last third of my years there. I feel very fortunate to have been able to experience my time there because I did feel like I was able to grow personally and professionally. I was given resources that I don't think I would have had otherwise. And I did meet some really amazing people that I miss. Honestly, I do. I miss talking to them and I miss having these like really deep conversations with them. And also, sometimes it was nice to talk shop, but it just wasn't like what I meant to do. And I wish I had a better way of expressing that when I was leaving. I didn't have the mental capacity to even understand what I was dealing with at that point because I had just finished a program, a mental health, like DBT program, like an outpatient. I got there because I had a nervous breakdown, and the nervous breakdown happened because of some things that conspired due to, I think, the stress from work that I put myself under was starting to come up along with other things that I had not addressed up until that point that were trauma related and things that I think I was just dealing with that I didn't really know how to process at the time. And so all of those things combined led me to have a nervous breakdown. And whatever had happened here was enough for us to know that I had to call my doctor, and my doctor recommended this program because I just was not in a really good place, I'll be honest, and I needed support. And I'm really glad that I called because this program was something that I feel like they should be teaching in schools. There's some really good things that I think would be helpful for everyone to know that I learned there. And I really wish that I had known them earlier in my life, and I would have been much better prepared to deal with a lot of the things that I had gone through. I'm really glad and grateful that I did go through it whenever it was because it still set me up for success for my future, no matter when it happened. Like my friend Michelle always says, I am where I'm meant to be right now. After I completed that program, I came back to work and I just didn't know how to deal with any of it. I don't think I was ready to come back, first of all. And second of all, I didn't know how to process any of the things that I had just gone through because everything happened so fast. This was all like in a matter of a couple of months at this point. I was not done processing any of the things that I just gone through and learned, and I feel like I just downloaded it all, but I haven't like opened all the documents, if that makes any sense. I feel like opening all the documents is like living through it and kind of like understanding all the things that I just underwent, and I need time to do all that. And I was not ready to do that in that environment. I think I had to remove myself from that environment at that point in order to grow more as a person. I do think that the corporate loop is something that a lot of people don't talk about, and I feel like it gets us into this cycle and it's really hard to escape. Your job can be stressful, and so you look for a reward for yourself, whether it's a daily reward, a weekly reward, a weekend reward, whatever it is, you reward yourself to cope with the stress of that life that you've created for yourself. I know I was doing it. I had lots of ways that I like to cope. I'm not going to list them all here because I don't think it's necessary to share all of that information, first of all, but also I don't want to give anybody any ideas. I'm just kidding. I've had several that I resorted to, and I am glad that slowly, as I started breaking out of some of them, I was able to come to myself and realize what I was doing and why I was doing it. It sucks to have gone through that. I'm grateful that I did because it helped me understand where I was. Those rewards cost money. And to have money, you have to keep your job. Because you need more money, it makes it so much harder to leave that job that you have created for yourself and worked so hard to put yourself in the position that you are in. But because it's so hard to leave, it creates a little bit more stress added on to the existing stress of the daily life of this job. And so you need to reward yourself a little bit more. And so you spend a little bit more money, and then you need a little bit more money, so you have to keep running the hamster wheel. Well, the salary felt like some sort of freedom that I had because I was able to maybe do more, spend more, mostly spend more. But it also was kind of like a leash. Some of the things that I would buy with the money that I would make at that job would also drain me. They wouldn't all be for fun or comfort or relaxation. A lot of those things would be adding more stress, more stuff into my life. That more stuff creates more chaos in my mind and in my house. The capitalism bubble. Can we talk about that? Specifically working for a retailer, I felt like I could not escape the capitalism bubble. I feel like it's, first of all, a system that profits from our exhaustion, and then they want to sell us a cure for it. It's like what my husband likes to call solutionism. Like they find a problem that might not even exist, and then they create a solution for it to make you feel better about this problem that they created. But I also feel like they kept me in the bubble because working for a retailer, we would get free products, multiple products. I loved getting product because I was really into beauty, skincare, wellness, whatever. And so I enjoyed all those products. But then having all these new products would make me want to try more new products, essentially. And because we worked for a retailer, I would get a discount. And so trying all these new products would make me want to try other things from those brands or other things on special because we would get additional discounts on things. And I would just want to buy more. And so while I was making money, I was also spending it. And I'm not saying that it's happened to everyone working in retail in general. I just know that for me, the type of personality that I have, some of the behaviors I have acquired over time, just not a healthy combination for me. I am very highly influenced by external factors, and that kept me stuck in this loop. But honestly, I think this whole nervous breakdown really happened because deep down, it all stems from fear. Fear about not having enough money, fear about not knowing who I was because I have my identity tied to this role and this job that I had lived now for so long. I was so afraid of what others would think about me. My husband, my family in general, people I worked with, my friends. I always cared way too much about what others thought. I never put my own feelings first. This fear that I lived with for so long was really disguising itself as being responsible. I was doing the right things. I was doing the responsible stuff as an adult and as a mom and all this stuff, but none of it felt right with me. I really had to learn to separate fear from this act of being responsible. Well, now I want to talk about some of the lessons that I learned along the way in this last year, because I feel like that's really the meat and potatoes of this video. The first lesson is that your intuition is so much smarter than any of your accomplishments. I spent a long time building these credentials for myself in this industry, but the deepest signal that I got came from deep down in my gut. And I feel like our instinct isn't irrational. I think it's okay to listen to our gut and maybe wait and act on it in a responsible way. Maybe not react to it right away. That reaction or those feelings, it's like data that your brain hasn't caught up to yet, but your body is telling you something. They haven't connected the dots, but it's happening. So when you're in that stage, I would say give it time. Don't necessarily act on your current emotions. As they say, don't make permanent decisions on temporary feelings. But also, if it's something you've thought about for a long time, and it's been in the back of your mind for a really long time, and this big nervous breakdown just happens to be a way that you bring it to the forefront, then maybe it is the right thing to do. Just figure out the best way to do that responsibly. The spending loop is a trap, not a reward system, in my opinion. When I left, I realized that I needed so much less stuff. All the stuff that I was constantly bringing home from either work and then other stores, because I felt the need to bring more stuff home because I was already getting all this new stuff, more stuff. I just felt like I needed more all the time, because not only because I was getting free stuff, but also because I had like the disposable income. And so it kept me wanting to buy more, maybe for my kids, for me, for myself, for my husband, for the household, like just in general, I constantly wanted more. I feel like I was medicating my stress with retail spending, whether it was online or in stores. It's not a good way to pacify your emotions. And I realized that real rest for the soul doesn't really cost anything. It's okay to just sit down and be quiet, but listen to your thoughts and like let them be, whatever they are. It's really hard for people to sit and be alone with their thoughts. I know it was for me initially, but I think that that was one of the most healing things I've done for myself. And that leads us into our next lesson, which is that presence is the real moneymaker here. Presence is our real currency that we should be spending on ourselves and on our family. No promotion, work title, number on my salary or whatever is going to make up for being completely mentally absent from my loved ones. None of that. I've always said since becoming a mom that mom has been my favorite title of all time. Not manager of this or that. None of them compared to being a mom. I love being a mom. I also had to find out who Marissa is. Like what's my actual identity outside of the things that I do? What else am I? Who am I? My family didn't just need my body in the room, they needed me. That was really important for me to distinguish. But it's something that I finally discovered and realized, and I think that that's the real deal. They actually have me here. I'm not just a body in a room. A really important takeaway that I have is that mental health should be a foundation and not a luxury. I feel like that society lots of times will treat mental health and wellness as a reward for the stress that we're under all the time. But I feel like that should be the priority, like the number one thing, and then our other stuff should come in secondary. Because how can we pour from an empty cup? Isn't that what they always tell us? Don't pour from an empty cup. But then why do you make it so hard for us to have a full cup? I think that leaving was me finally like filling my cup all the way. And I needed that. A lesson that came out of this is that my identity was not tied to my job. I feel like I put so much emphasis of myself on my role and who I was in that job that I forgot who I truly am on the inside and who I truly am. Like I was building myself up and saying all these things about myself for many years, probably like since graduating college, that I'm really good at time management, I'm really good at multitasking, I'm really good at this and that, like all these things that I had like built myself up as, but then realizing that maybe I'm not actually so good at those things. Maybe I was at one point, but I didn't think that those were like my strengths. And maybe I just didn't view them the same way as other people. Maybe those were my strengths and I just didn't see it that way. But I think that because I didn't like fully align with that work, it was really hard for me to see my strengths in that work. Maybe rebuilding my identity outside of my work has been really uncomfortable and difficult. But it's also been one of the most freeing things I've ever done in retrospect. So, and guess what? A really important lesson, because I thought the world would fall apart completely if I did this. My world, their world, my family's world. And guess what? None of that happened. The world did not fall apart because of this one decision that I made. I decided to bet on myself and everything stayed the same. Well, except my job. That changed, but life stayed the same. I didn't face financial ruin. I didn't face judgment from my family or loved ones. And I'm not a failure. But rarely does what our anxious brain predicts actually happen, honestly. Come on, let's get real. Like, has the worst case scenario ever actually happened? No. But I just had a really hard time coming to terms with that. But luckily, I did have my husband on my side who supported me 110% and kept reassuring me that we're fine, you're fine, everything's fine. And I am, everything's fine. And within that, I learned that even when hard things happen, we're still here, intact and whole and fine. And now I feel like I have finally been able to release that pressure that I was putting on myself for all those years. I do still have a job. I didn't quit working completely. I just have a different routine now. I'm closer to my kids. I'm able to spend more time with my kids. It's a different routine, and this routine is a lot gentler on myself, on my body, on my family. My days don't feel like dread anymore. I feel frustrated here and there, but I don't feel like crying every day. I don't have to have dinner with my mind still being down in my basement, thinking about the spreadsheets or meetings that I had to create or whatever it was that I had to do. Sometimes I don't even look at my own inbox for days, and I realize that they are things I need to catch up on. But just not constantly being online and being in that loop keeps me also out of it a little bit, which I like because I feel like I was constantly on, and that wasn't good for me. Not for the type of brain that I have, I guess, or the type of person that I am. It just wasn't good for me. And it's nice to be able to separate myself from that. And I realized how much less I need. I need less stimulation, less spending, and less numbing of everything. Like, I'm not running on empty anymore. I'm actually filling my cup in ways that I enjoy. I have the time to do the things that I enjoy, and if I don't have the time, I'm able to create that time because I find those things very important. And I realized that simpler actually turned out to be a lot richer. But let's get real. Like, the last year hasn't all been roses and shiny and pink and all of the things. It's been hard. I had many ups and downs, many days and nights that I spent crying and regretting and second guessing my choices, and rough days at my current job that I was second guessing, was this a good choice even? It hasn't all been freedom and slow mornings, it hasn't all been 100% perfect all the time. But nothing ever is, right? I question myself all the time. But I think I finally came to the realization that I needed this. I needed the separation in order to grow. My therapist says something to me, and it's that sometimes we need regression to grow. And I totally and completely relate to that in this scenario because I feel like me leaving is sort of me regressing in my career or workspace, but I needed to regress in order to grow in that space at some point and figure out what it is that I really want to be doing in my life and with my life and for my family and all the things. So I think that that's okay. It's okay to have hard days and hard moments going through this because that's how we grow and learn about ourselves. So if you're watching this and you get the Sunday scaries and your stomach is in knots, I think that that feeling might be trying to tell you something. If you're spending money every weekend or going out or doing things that you know are not great for you, but you do them anyway just to escape, ask yourself, what are you actually escaping from? What are you recovering from? What are you running away from? All I can say is that I'm so glad I did this. I did this for myself. I did this for my mental health. I did this for my family. I did this for our future. And the pressure has finally been released. And a year later, I'd still do it again in a heartbeat. I'm so glad that I'm here. And I'm so glad where I'm at. And I'm so glad that I have the life that I have. I am where I am, exactly when I need to be and where I need to be. Thank you so much for being here and for watching. I really appreciate you. If you haven't subscribed yet, I hope you will. And I will talk to you in my next video. Bye.